I want to switch more and get into some football, and I want to get into a couple other areas with you that I think are pretty fascinating. Let's start and go back into your office. I'm sitting there with my young son, Duffy, and you know I'd come up every single week and interview and spend time with you. And you called a young guy in, not the biggest guy in the world, and you said, Eric, come here. You go, I want to introduce you to this kid. And you had told me this is the steal of our recruiting class. In walks Eric Fisher. Now people know him as the first-round draft pick of the Kansas City Chiefs. And he wasn't the biggest guy in the world. And you said to me, Hondo, I want you to meet Eric. He's a first-round NFL draft pick. And he kind of looked at you and you go, what, you don't believe me? And he smiled and you go, you are, Eric. And when he left the room, you told me, so many people see him for what he is today. We see him where he's going to be in our strength program, where he's going to be as we develop him, his character. Can't teach character. And you go, he's a first-round draft pick. And you said, you mark it down, Hondo. In fact, you even told my son, Duffy, I'll bet you a Snickers. And then
he wanted a Milky Way.
Okay, I know, but my point was, I remember texting you the night he gets picked, and I'm like, amen, brother, you nailed it. So here is, before you got to Tennessee, you were universally lauded as one of the best developers of talent. So much so, I think it's 7 guys from your last Central Michigan team are still playing in the NFL. Still playing. 7. Now you go to Tennessee, where I don't care where you live in America, that bright orange tee means something. It's the SEC. It's Neyland Stadium. It is the pomp and circumstance that makes Tennessee football amazing. Even for a guy like me that grew up in the North, everyone knows Tennessee, the checkerboard. When you combine your ability to develop talent and see it in the national recruiting prestige of Tennessee, the recruiting numbers don't lie, but you've done amazing since you've been there. How has that combined? Because I think it's been a combustible force for you.
It has combined, but I don't think you can ever lose sight of we're in the developmental business. And I think that's the art of it is, where do you see these individuals 2-3 years down the road, and they're like raising your children. They all develop at different stages.
Good point.
So being able to look at the competitive character, we focused more on the family side, the character side, the competitive character side, the academic side, all those things. That goes into our recruiting profile, but we're still in the developmental business each and every day. That's why having the resources around them and the people investing in them are very, very, very important. And it still gets back to a relationship business. Recruiting is all based on people and those relationships, and very proud, obviously, of Eric Fisher. And he kind of followed the same formula as Joe Staley, who's a left tackle for the San Francisco 49ers. And I still remember, Hondo, that last week in recruiting, Eric had a basketball game, and I'm looking around to see if there's any Big Ten teams coming to watch him play, and he's running the court, and he's about 6'4", about 215, 220 pounds at that stage of his life. And I literally got up out of the stands and stood in the hallway right by the doors to make sure that nobody would come by if there's going to be any other coaches there. And we thought he had all the attributes to be a great player, and following his progression with the Kansas City Chiefs has been exciting. And we have a number of players that we've coached either now at Tennessee, at Central Michigan, or at Cincinnati on that team. And they'll send me pictures. And the other individual you mentioned, he's the elite wide receiver of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Antonio Brown. He was on that same team as well, and Jaleel Adai, who's a safety for the San Diego Chargers, and Nick Ballore, who's now back in Michigan with the Detroit Lions, and I could go on with all these individuals, and just very proud of them.
And as a guy who was around that program, I've said this before, I'm not going to name any names, but there are 2 schools that you've left that when people left those schools prior to you, players almost rioted. They felt they were lied to. They'd been told both of your stops, when you left Central and you left Cincinnati, you kept the captains informed of what was going on. I know you did, because the captains told us, man, coach told us, never lied to us. You weren't looking to go. And the thing I found fascinating is both schools you left, the players hugged you, they cried, they loved you, and all of them said, Coach, we want you to go reach your dream. And I think that talks to that relationship.
Well, it is. It's about relationships and trust is built over time, and just communication with everything that's going on. And when they know you care about them more than just as a football player, I think that goes a very, very long way. And it starts with me, obviously, but it's more than Butch Jones. It's having great people around him, and that's what we've been able to do.
Butch, in the last 2 years, previous to this year, Tennessee didn't have any draft picks. This year you had 6 in the first 4 rounds. That's the most in 15 years. I think people now are beginning to see the talent level's gone up. These are kids you've had the ability to certainly develop. How does that success in getting guys to the league help you in recruiting?
Oh, it helps immensely. And I think what you see, Hondo, is the evolution of building a football program. And that's what we talk about. It's one thing to build a team, it's another to build a program. And you see the evolution of that, of how far we've come. And us as adults, we look at 1998, we look at 2000, and we think, oh, that was just yesterday. But it's 2017 now. And the individuals that we're recruiting, they grew up in a different era of Tennessee football. So now that we've had success, and we talk about sustained success, it's not going to be something that's a flash and it's here and gone. We're working for sustained success. When you look at winning games on the field, you look at graduating your players. We also had our APR come back, and it's the highest that we've ever had in the history of Tennessee football. And a lot of people don't understand, too, when we took the job, we were going to be the first football team that had sanctions regarding the APR, and that would have been catastrophic. I don't know if we would have ever recovered. We had to have 1,000, which is a perfect score in the APR, and we were able to do that. And I say that may be the greatest history, or the greatest victory in the history of Tennessee football that nobody really talks about. And so again, you look at the evolution of our program, of how far we've come, and now we talk about NFL ready and developing players for the next level, and being able to be in Philadelphia and see Derek Barnett go with the first pick of the Philadelphia Eagles in that hometown. That was pretty special. And again, all of our players have had very productive mini camps, so I'm looking forward to watching their careers.
When you looked at the December signing period, there are coaches on both sides. Winning programs are like, wait a minute, if you're in your conference championship game or preparing for bowl games, that really hurts you. Other ones don't mind it as much. Other people say, hey, I like it because I can get guys signed who are fully committed, so I'm not worried about keeping them, and I can work on new guys towards the last part. Like it or hate it, it's here. So complaining about it isn't going to change it. So how has the December signing period affected Butch Jones in Tennessee?
Well, we have a plan, and just like anything, it's the first time. So,
right.
I'm going to wait and judge, have that judgment, hold my opinion after we go through a recruiting cycle of the early signing date. But there are some challenges which you just spoke about in terms of if you're playing in a conference championship game, you're going to lose. I know for us in the SEC, we'll lose that week of recruiting. Also, you're having individuals make examples or make decisions where they're in examinations. So there's a lot that goes on with that. So I think it's kind of, we'll see. We have a plan in place. I think what it will do is it'll also accelerate the official visits during the season. And the thing that we have to do a great job is making sure that it doesn't interfere with our current football team. But as we know, recruiting is a lifeline of any program. And we'll have a plan in place. I do think it's healthy for the young man, if he knows where he's going, to be able to sign and kind of have that anxiety go away and just focus on finishing his senior year and being with his family for the holidays.
I had a coach tell me recently that it's now made July even more important. Can you explain that? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it has. It's really made the off season even that much more important, of getting young men on your campus for unofficial visits. And for us, we want to get them around our players. We want them to interact with our players as well, to see if they're a fit for our culture, if they're a fit for our program. So it has, even though we have the July dead period, when we get back off of vacation, it'll be nonstop with unofficial visitors leading into then the segue of their high school senior years.
I want to talk about something that I've not read in the Tennessee media, and I think that this needs to be out there about you. when you were at Tennessee and Cincinnati, Dan Lefever's the one that told me this. Dan Lefever talked about a kid had offers from Michigan State, Purdue, Indiana, lots of Big Ten schools, and he was really wanted to play for you. And so you had Dan hang around with him. And Dan said to you, this may not be our kind of guy. And you didn't offer the kid. It's Central. And you did the same thing at Cincinnati, where as you started to get guys in your program where you knew them, didn't matter if you recruited them, but when you knew their character, when you knew their integrity, when you knew do they know how to play. And I don't mean success, but do they know how to practice and prepare. When a kid would come in for a visit, it was as much your players interviewing him to get into your locker room as him interviewing you to know whether or not to come. When you first got to Tennessee, I told a couple of people, when Butch starts to know what guys on his team do it right, he'll have 40, 50, 60, and eventually 100 other guys recruiting. And I think you're getting there now at Tennessee, where you can have a player come that you respect and say, Coach, I hosted him this weekend. He doesn't fit our culture. And you'll just walk away. Am I right?
That's what it's all about. And again, it has to be a fit. It has to be a two-way fit. And, we want to bring individuals that are like-minded in our football program, that have the same dreams, goals, and aspirations of what we want to accomplish. And who knows better about that than our current players. So, again, we try to get our players around our recruits as much as possible. I totally value their opinion, and I want them to speak freely. Does this individual fit our profile? Can he make it in our football program? What are his expectations? What is he looking for? Because to me, the greatest differentiator of individuals making it in college is what we call the speed of life. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the speed of life grabs hold of them and they can't recover. So again, we want to involve our players as much as possible.